So Bulk and Skull were like, along with a lot of the cast and crew, found them to be the real actors of the show because they were like thespians and they were really funny and they were best friends before they started the show. And so they had a good camaraderie with them. But they were always doing practical jokes on the cast and they were doing their own funny things. And so one morning I was coming in to film and we have a little parking lot in the studio and there was one spot, all the actors had their spaces in the parking. And the one guy that was late was Paul Schreier, who was Bulk, and he had the one car space in between all the cars, so there was only that one space open, and we just see him rushing. He's probably like doing probably 40 miles an hour in the parking lot. He had an old what was it? A Toyota Tercel, those old hatchbacks from like the 70s, and he came ripping in there like 30 miles an hour. The guy fishtailed it with his e-brake and went right into the space in between all those cars without touching one of them. And everybody was like, dude, how did you do that? You're not like a race car driver. Like, that was like pure luck. but that fit his personality because he was like, funny. So, any questions? Anything? It could be about, I don't know, somebody's birthday. So who's come from the farthest? I've come from California. Who's come from the farthest in the area? No?
Well, I came from Texas.
Oh, okay.
I came from Japan.
Did you really?
Yeah.
That's pretty far. That's where Power Rangers started. Did you know that?
Only pineapples.
Power Rangers started in Japan in 1975, I think. Want me to tell another story? So, I started out as an extra. I wasn't looking to be an actor. I graduated from high school in May of '94, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't take my SATs that year because they wanted me to take them on my birthday, and I was like, no, I'm not going to go on my birthday. And not that I thought I knew everything, but I saw an ad in the newspaper to become an extra, and all my friends would tell me that, oh, they make a lot of money and they get free lunch, and it's really cool. And so I signed up, and actually VR Troopers was the first show that they sent me on, and they sent me to Castaic Lake at 4 in the morning, which is in the middle of nowhere in California. And so I drove out there at 4 in the morning, not knowing what I was doing. I was actually in the opening scene of that show. There was like a protest. They were marching in a protest, and then we had to look over a hill. And they added it in later, but there was like a building that was going to be blowing up. And so I was on VR Troopers the first day of my film career. But the next week they sent me on Power Rangers every day. So they filmed right next door to each other at the studio. So I went to Power Rangers. I was just an extra, and a couple days later, one of the stunt coordinators came in, and he's like, "Hey, one of our stunt guys got hurt. We just need somebody to be in the Red Ranger outfit real quick. You're not going to be doing anything. Who wants to do it?" So the room, there was 20 guys and 20 girls, and so the girls couldn't do it obviously because of girl things. But all the guys in the room, there was 20 guys, and they were all buff. They were all big, muscular dudes, and I was a scrawny little kid in the corner. But like I said, everybody that's usually an extra, they want to be an actor. So as soon as they said, "Can anybody do it?" they all raised their hands. They're like, "Me, me, me." And so they went one by one. But the guys couldn't fit in the Ranger outfit because it was spandex, and the Red Ranger wasn't that big. They were all like Arnold Schwarzenegger guys. And so they finally got to me, and they're like, "What about you?" And I was like, "I guess." And so I tried it on. It was like Cinderella. The costume fit, and everything's cool. And that started my great 10-year career on that show, which I wouldn't give up anything for it. I mean, everybody always says, like, even when I started working on the show, my family didn't believe that I was working on a TV show, let alone Power Rangers, because a lot of people ever figure, like, the Friends cast. The Friends cast made millions of dollars per episode, right? And if we're a kid's show that has toys, everybody automatically assumes that you're, like, making bank. So like my family in particular, I would leave at 4 o'clock every morning to go to work, wouldn't come back till like 8 o'clock at night. And yeah, I was making $3 grand a week. I was 18 years old. That's a lot of money. I wasn't gonna be like, give me more money, but so I was making a lot of money at the time, partying, I was doing everything, and now all I got to show for is this helmet that a fan gave me. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. What was the main point? Oh, so like my family didn't believe that I worked on the show, and I'm like, I had to take pictures. I'm like, yeah, this is me in the suit, look. And like, but how come you're not making, I mean, they knew I was making the 3,000, but they were like, you should be making more. And it was like, you don't know the aspects of the business. I'm barely getting into it, I don't know. But okay, so question again.
Can we see you in your helmet?
You can, but then I mess up my hair. And then I probably wouldn't be able to breathe. But I'll put it on. Are you going to take a picture? If you take a picture, I'll put it on.
Okay. No.
Thank you. I don't know if I can fit this. My nose has got bigger.
Okay. Nice.
Any other questions?
Are you going to be involved, or what do you think of them doing a new Power Rangers movie?
I think we're all excited, everybody that's been on the show, because we're part of this franchise. I personally don't think they're going to say, hey, you know, Jason, why don't you come work on the show? But, you know, there's always, like Jason Frank's like the biggest guy in Power Rangers history, so if they don't give that guy something, I think it would be like a shot to the fans, and him. I mean, he should get some kind of cameo or something, you know? I mean, they've been good about doing that in the series, but now, like, a lot of the Rangers are getting on the bandwagon because they see how popular he's getting with social media and all this other stuff. And it can only get bad in the sense that if every Ranger wants to do it, they're not going to be able to put everybody in there. It's not going to be a mega war, right? It's just Power Rangers, you know? But I do wish that I would work on the show. Ever since I left in 2004, I think it was, I missed it, you know. I missed being there with everybody, and it was a cool job. I was a kid's toy. That's like my one phrase. Everybody says, what did you like most about the show? It was like, I was several kids' toys. You know, like, not everybody can say that. Anybody else?
Some people might know the answer to this already, but what style of martial arts have you practiced?
I don't want to say this to everybody, but I wasn't a real martial artist when I started the show. I actually was taught day by day, which is something that usually never happens on any set. If you don't know martial arts, then you don't get the job. But my circumstances, like I said, were different because at the time they needed somebody right there to hold something. And they needed to be the Red Ranger, so you know, I fit in the suit. So they just worked with me. And I started studying a form called Kung Tao, which was a form of karate, and I forgot the other name, I'm sorry. And karate and I forgot. But I studied that for like five years. But then my filming schedule was so tight that I couldn't go to train because by the time I got home, it would be closed. So the guys on set would teach me. They taught me little by little every day. And even though I wasn't actually like a certain belt, you know, I'm not a black belt, but I did learn a lot from those guys, you know. Hope I didn't make you guys know anything. Anybody else?
How many Power Ranger shows were you in?
I think it's 10 seasons.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I think they were on for 13 and I was on for 10 of them.
Nice.
I was just about every Ranger, every monster at one point in time. Even the pink one. Okay. You had a question? I thought it was here. Anybody else? Okay, what's so funny? Okay. Oh, we all like Power Rangers, that's why we're here. Look, I'm even wearing the shirt.
I remember watching the Power Rangers movie when I was 14.
Thank you for keeping me employed. So I haven't seen Jason Frank since he left the show, and I saw him for the first time again at Comic-Con in San Diego this year, and I knew he was going to be there, and then everybody knew that most of the Rangers were going to be signing there like me, and but our schedules were so tight because there was like 4 different booths. There was the DVD booth, the toy booth, this booth, and that booth, and we were all being herded around like cattle, like, you're going to sign there at this time, you're going to sign there. So we were all like back and forth. And I wanted to go see him, and it wasn't until the con was almost over, the last day, and it was like an hour left, and I was like, oh, I forgot to go say hi to him. So I went over there, and you know, he had a line, obviously, and the people from the con, when they saw me run up, they're like, oh, he's not taking anybody, because I went straight to the front. I didn't wait in line. And they're like, oh, the line's back there, but we're closed. And like, they were trying to kick me out, and then Jason saw me, like, oh, no, it's okay. Like, for him to actually come and say, like, he worked on the show, because a lot of these guys, you know, they don't remember. You know, there was so many of us in the show that, you know, the main actors and stuff like that, you know, I won't say who it was, but he's a car salesman now, and he was like in the middle of everything, of a Ranger, but he's a car salesman back in California, and I just happened to be looking at these cars one day, and I saw him. And I was with my girlfriend, and I walked up to him, oh, hey man, what's going on? And he looked at me like, well, who are you? I go, well, I worked on the show with you. He's like, oh, I don't remember you, dude. Like, right, you know, like, trying to bash me in front of my girlfriend. I'm like, but I was a Ranger before. Then I'm like, I was a Ranger before you, dude. You're gonna play that card. It's like, I was there before you, and I was still there after you. But like, he was being like a jerk. He was like, come on, man. Anybody else?
How does it work? I mean, is there certain actors, and then, like, if one's a certain color Ranger, they add in the costume, or?
I'm not understanding the question.
I only see it when they kind of watch it, and I'll see, like, they'll have the actors acting and doing the plot.
Oh, okay.
And when they switch over to the costume, is that actor actually in those
No,
costumes?
those are totally different people. But like, but to add to that, in the beginning, when it was the original Power Rangers, everybody had to know something. So somebody knew gymnastics in real life. So like Billy knew gymnastics, and Kimberly knew gymnastics, and the other three knew karate. Except for Thuy. I say her name right, she's passed away. But the original Yellow Ranger, she didn't know anything. So if you ever watch the show, you'll see that they do intricate cut scenes when she's fighting. She'll be like, ah! And then you won't actually ever see her throw an actual punch or a kick at anybody. It's always like a stop. And so I think that the action always was already ended. It'll cut to her have already punched the person. Because she's the only one that didn't really know anything. So they had to do like these little intricate scenes with her.
Yeah.
But everybody else knew martial arts. You know, like Steve Cardenas, I'm his friend still now, and like he's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy now. That guy knows his stuff. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Anybody else?
What was it like putting on the makeup and all that for the villains?
It was funny. I have a funny story about that. So Baboo, the first day that I was Baboo, I had to go to work at the park. The park was like 10 miles down the road on the freeway. And we filmed in the middle of nowhere. It was like, there was nothing there yet. And so they did my makeup in the studio. And at the time, the show was so cheap, that's how cheap we were. If we were at the park, we did the makeup at the studio, and we all drove ourselves to wherever, if it was nearby. That's how cheap it was. But so, I got my car, I'm driving on the freeway, and through the streets, like, at the end of it, getting off the freeway was a residential neighborhood. So, by the time I got out of makeup, it was time for like people to go to school, the kids and stuff. And so there I'd be with my blue face, my red lipstick, and people would be looking at me like, what the heck's wrong with this guy, like driving like that. But the makeup was fairly, there was no makeup being a villain unless the eyes were showing. Then they just do like the Batman football player blackout right here. But I think Baboo was the most makeup I've ever worn because of the blue face. And I don't like makeup, I was always scratching it off. Yeah.
Can you your autograph?
Yeah. After, I'll be there. Anybody else? Who remembers that clown from one of the original episodes? There was a bad guy that was a clown. Anybody? I forgot what his name was. They were at the carnival, but the bad guy was a clown first, and he turned into a monster, I think. Well, at the Power Ranger convention 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago in Pasadena, the clown was going to come, but he was going to come as himself. He's an older guy now. But he had made a bet with one of the other Rangers. I forgot what the bet was, but he lost. And the bet was if he lost, he had to be at the convention the whole time as a clown. And so he showed up as a clown, and he had to sit there as a clown. Anybody else?
During your whole time doing the show, what would be your favorite costume?
My favorite would be Baboo because that was like the first guy I was. Obviously, the original Red Ranger, I loved being that guy. I think everybody did. Everybody used to fight over it. to be that guy. But the later seasons, I really liked Time Force. I liked all the stuff from Time Force. Especially like, even though I wasn't, I think Frax. I like Frax from Time Force. Yeah.
Have you been in the Blue Ranger suit?
I have. More than once. I can't tell you when that's been though.
Have you ever heard of a show called Kamen Rider?
Yeah.
Admittedly, I know very little about it, but I understand it has some similarities to Power Rangers.
It's my understanding that Kamen Rider was Mask Rider, right? Before. It was Mask Rider, but I mean, they took aspects of it that made it Mask Rider, but I think that's what it originally was. Or something like that. But I've never seen, because Kamen Rider is recent, right? A couple years. And I've never seen the episode, but I met two of the actors at the convention a couple weeks ago that worked on that show. Who remembers VR Troopers? VR Troopers? Remember VR Troopers? Yeah. That was fun because everybody thought that was a ripoff of Power Rangers when it was the same company. That's why I think it failed, and Mask Rider too, because everybody thought that it was a ripoff of Power Rangers, but it was really just its own show. Because in Japan, I don't know if you know, in Japan, there's all these, Toei makes like, I think 10 or 12 different shows that are like Power Rangers, but they're different, and they're all successful. And the reason why I think they're successful out there is because they do the show, and every year they have a show that tours, like a stunt show. But they go into their marketing so well out there, and I don't know if, because Saban hardly did anything in the beginning. I don't know if it was a rights thing that they couldn't. Like even the toys were like so cheaply done up, it was like, really? But I think a lot of the success that should have happened early on, even though it was popular, was, they needed to get that show going. But they only did it that one time. I think they only had it that one year, and that was it. But that was like the biggest fear that it had, People were waiting at Universal Studios, there was like thousands of people that were waiting there that couldn't get in. It's like a big deal. It was odd to see. Not odd, but surreal. I should say surreal. To actually see all these people waiting for you, it's like, wow. When the Turtle movie opened up, I'm surprised that, because I do gigs with the Turtles in the van all over the country now, and the Power Rangers too, but it's all about Turtles now. And when the movie opened, only one theater asked us to do something for the opening, and that was in California. That was also like in the middle of nowhere, it was in the desert. But it was like a big booming community, but it was in the middle of nowhere, it was Temecula. And so about a month prior, we made the deal to be there for the opening weekend, which was the next day after it opened on Saturday. And they were planning to do this show that some guy was making the audio for it that had music and people talking and stuff like that. And so me and my partner, it was just between us. We did social media, Facebook and Instagram. We were just promoting it every day, And then we got there, and there was 3,000 people there. And it took me back to Power Rangers when we did those certain gigs where everybody was waiting for us. We got there, and there was 3,000 people that had been waiting for like 4 hours just to see this show. They didn't even know how long the show was going to be. They just knew that we were going to do some live show, and they were just all there. It was hot. I felt bad when I got there because everybody was waiting for 4 hours. There was a line that wrapped around the theater because after we were supposed to do the show 3 times in the 2 hours that we were supposed to be there. And in between the shows, we were going to take photos with people inside the theater for a charity. So besides the 3,000 people that were lined in the crowd, there was like 1,000 people in a line around the building to take pictures with us. So when we finished the first show, we got mobbed. Like as soon as everybody realized the show was over, we were in the middle of the courtyard, people came at us. It's like a sea of people. And the security guards grabbed us and freaking took us out, like ran us out. And then we went in the theater, we started taking the pictures, and then they're like, the line ain't going down. They finally canceled the other 2 shows because we couldn't even get back outside because now the whole courtyard was just full of people trying to get into the theater to take pictures with us. So besides that line, everybody was trying to get in. And they canceled the other shows, and then that was a big mess because they thought that we canceled them. So I had to go, because I was looking at everything. Every time we took a break, I was looking at the social media. And a lot of people were complaining, like, why would you cancel the show? Like, it wasn't us, it was the building, and blah, blah, blah. But for the long run, we were only supposed to be there for 2 hours. From 12 until 3, or no, 3, from 12 until 3. But by the time 3 o'clock rolled around, the building management came in, they're like, dude, I know you're supposed to be here till now and leave, but we got like 1,000 people still in the line. So don't worry about it, we'll stay until they're gone. So we were there from 12 until like 7 o'clock at night, because we didn't want to leave with somebody waiting, you know. They were there for us, and you know, we don't want to turn people away, you know. That was a real overwhelming for us. Yeah.
So there was more people there for you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Than there was for the moved actual.
Oh yeah. They even said that. They're like, dude, we weren't expecting this, and like, it's a big deal. You know, 2 weeks ago, no, last week we were in Illinois. This family, they have a 5-year-old son. I think they did all the cancer treatments. He had cancer. He had like stage 4 cancer. And so a month prior, they were messaging me, trying to tell me, hey, how can we get you out to Illinois? What do we need to do? I go, well, because of your circumstance, we won't charge you, but you just need to get us out there. So you need to get airplane tickets for us and a hotel room. And she said, okay, let me call you back. And so that was like a Monday. And then she called back. She said, okay, we're going to have a fundraiser. We're going to have a fundraiser on Saturday. We already set it up. I go, if you need help, let me know. I can give you the idea. She said, no, I think we got it. And so what it was is they went to this, it was a small farming town in Illinois. It's called Godfrey. And once we finally got there, I'm like, man, this is like a little town. But they took us to the bar. The last day that we were there, they took us to the bar. That they raised $5,000 in this little neighborhood bar that was built out of a house. A regular 2-story house, they built a bar into it. But that it was a business, it wasn't just for the day. But the drinks were like $3, so you do the math. It's like, how many drinks and how many people were there? In 6 hours, they raised $5,000, you know? And so she called us that night. She's like, okay, we got the money, set it up. So we went. And out of all the conventions that I've ever done, all the events that we've done across the country, for her to be just a regular mom, not ever doing something like these conventions and stuff like that, we were taking care of the most because of the town. We got off the plane. From the time we got off the plane to the time we got back on, everything was like, what can we do for you and how can we help? Come on, Cody, good question.
What made you build the turtle van?
When I was a little kid, I wanted to drive that thing when I was an adult. When I was a kid, there was 3 things that I wanted. I wanted Turtle Man, the Back to the Future car, and Knight Rider. I actually had more dreams about the Back to the Future car than I did about the Turtle Man. But as I got older, I started meeting my friends that I have now with these cars. A lot of them had the Back to the Future car, and a lot of them had the Knight Rider car. And I go, I didn't want to do a car that if I didn't have enough money to do it the right way, I didn't want it to look cheap. You know, if I did it, I wanted to do it right. But at the time, like the Knight Rider car, if I did that, it would have been like, I don't know, 60 grand with everything, to put everything in there. Because my friend, he has the best Knight Rider car on the West Coast. That thing was used on the roast with Hasselhoff. It was in a couple of GE commercials. But he has the best one out there, inside and out, that's kit, you know? And I don't want to be the one that just has the car with the light in front, because I couldn't afford the dash with the lights inside, you know, that's not what it is. So when I got, I built the Turtle Van in 4 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. And the reason why it came about, I had a little BMW Z3, that was like my baby, my little pride and joy. The girlfriend that I had at the time blew it up. She ran it without oil. I went to go do a movie for like a month, and she claims that the car didn't tell her that it needed oil. It's a BMW. It's probably going to hit you on the head if it needs oil, you know? So I came back, and there was a hole in the block, so the car's gone. And at the time, I figured, well, yeah, I could probably buy a Mercedes or put a down payment on a house, but I'd always wanted the Turtle Van. So I started drawing off the toy. And then I started doing research because I didn't want to just buy any van to make it. I wanted to make sure that it was supposed to be that. And so I met Kevin Eastman, and he showed me the comics. He said, yeah, the Turtle Van was always just a VW bus. It wasn't a van like you see in the toy. Because in the old comics, they used to drive around an old VW bus, that's all it was. And so I decided to make it out of that. Not realizing that the VW bus is old, has no air conditioning, and every time you get out of it, you smell like engine exhaust. You know, so, but I built it. I think overall it was like 30 grand, 20 or 30 grand after everything. Because every piece on that van had to be made. I had to find somebody to mold those pieces, like the sewer cover on the front, somebody had to make that. The bricks on the side of the door that come out, somebody had to make those bricks. Somebody had to install the door to come out. You know, that was a thing in itself, with the spoiler on top and everything. Everything on that van had to be made. So I had to find people to do that because I have no knowledge of any of that stuff. And so I just dropped all my money. I said, go. And then 6 months later, after I pulled out my hair, because it was only supposed to take 3 months. And every day I was calling, oh, what's going on with this part? What's going on with that? Well, I can't finish this because this guy's brought that. I'm like, oh. And I like pull out my hair there. It's like, all right. But the van actually came out like a day before Halloween, whatever, 4 years ago. And the first time I drove that thing around, it was like awesome. It was, you know, it still is awesome to drive it because I like when people point and take the pictures and stuff like that. I just hate driving it because of no air conditioning. The only thing that keeps me going is because people like it. You know, I like that I get to bring some kind of smile to people. You know, people might be having a bad day. It's happened where people have had bad days. I've seen them arguing, walking by. They had no idea the turtle van was right there. Not here, but just in general. They're all mad, talking, whatever. And they just happen to look and automatically like, oh, it's like, you know, like, you know, when you see the gold brick. But stuff like that, you know. And, yeah. I don't want to get too much into the turtle stuff because I have another panel of star cars. That's at 1 o'clock, I think. We can talk about that there. Any other Power Ranger stuff? You, Superman? No? Let me find another little story. Oh, okay. Time Force. You know Time Force? So Michael Copon, me and him got along because we were both into wrestling at the time. I was going to wrestling school. I wanted to be a wrestler, and I was slowly. It took me about 2 years to realize I wasn't going to be a wrestler because I couldn't. Even though I knew the moves, I couldn't gain the weight. So there's no way. Even though I could pick a 280 pound guy up over my head, which wasn't all me, by the way. Nobody's going to believe that I did that on TV. So that dream was slowly and quickly gone. But me and Michael Copon were big wrestling fans. And one day we were filming that scene where he was at the DMV getting his license. I don't know if you remember that show. He was supposed to be like this race car driver in this TV series Back in the Future. But then when he came back to the past, he didn't have a driver's license, so he had to take a driving test. And so we were at the DMV, and we had all the stunt mats out there, and we were having a conversation because Raw was coming to town. We were going to go, and so we started wrestling. And I got in a suplex, and I suplexed him up. And as I had him up in the air, I had all the ADs and the directors were like, "Hey, put him down! What if you hurt him? If you hurt him, we can't film." Like, relax. There's like a 4-foot high mat right here. He ain't gonna get hurt. But so we like wrestling. We did an episode on the back lot of Universal Studios. And at the time, I knew people that worked at Universal. So we had some breaks. I was able to shyster a golf cart. So me and Michael Copon were running around the back lot in a golf cart. We stopped. At the time, I think Back to the Future was still there, so we got off by the ride. We went on the ride. And everybody's like, "Where'd you guys go? You guys were gone for like an hour." Like, "Oh, we're just messing around." Funny. Anybody else? How much time do I have?
11:36.
26 minutes. I can sing a song. Let me see if I can come up with another story. When I was first learning how to do stunts, there was a wire gag where I was the monster, and so I was going to get hit, and the people were going to pull me up by wires, and I was going to fly in the air. So I flew in the air, and in stunts, if you're not paying attention when you're fighting or whatever you're supposed to be doing, then that's bad. Something bad will happen to you. You'll get punched, and you'll get kicked. That's happened to me before, you know. So this one gig, I was supposed to get taken up by wires, like probably as high as the room. And they pulled me up, and I forgot what I was thinking about, but I wasn't going to spin the right way, and I ended up in a tree. I ended up in a tree, and they're like, "Dude, you were supposed to go left, and you went right." I'm like, "I know." So my body, the forest took me to the tree. And that was like the worst thing ever because everybody was making fun of me. Yeah. Anybody else?
How far have your travels taken you?
Well, I went to Australia for the first movie. I went to Hawaii for the second movie. But as far as other stuff, I've only done stuff in the United States. I haven't really gone out of the country yet, except for Florida. Visit, no, I haven't gone. I want to go to Japan, obviously, because that's where the Power Rangers started.
Haven't visited Asia yet?
No, I want to. I'm one of those guys, these last 38 years of my life, that I got stuck in a routine. And my routine was just, I'm happy at home. But then I see everybody else traveling, and I'm like, I'm going to do that. So now I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to start, even if it's not for conventions, I want to start doing that next year. Because I see everybody else doing it. I see people with no money doing it, so why can't I do it? And it's good for them. I'm not bashing them. It's just that certain people have different priorities, you know. There are these people that are able to travel, and they don't care what they have. They don't need to have a car. They just pack up their stuff and they go. I met this girl. She's on a world tour. She's like 21. She's going to tour the world until she finishes and do whatever she needs to do when she gets there to make money. Not like everything, but you know. But people like that I admire because they don't let the world rule them. You know. Good question.
Yeah, how did the episode with the Power Rangers episode that featured all the Red Rangers come about?
Well, in the Japan series, they had an episode like that. So that's how that everything happens because of Japan. It lessens the FX cost for the people here. But yeah, like when we would get like just in general, we get all the footage we get the whole episode from the show, right? And then the producers and the stunt coordinators, they go over it and they critique it and they take out the parts that they want and that they need. Not necessarily using the same story, but they'll just take out the parts that they need and then they'll give them the tape to the writers and say, here, this is episode 2, go ahead. And that's it. It's like, they gotta put the footage in and write the story around that footage because they don't want to spend the money making the special effects Godzilla scenes, you know? It's like, they're already there, why try and do it again? That's how that stuff comes about. But the 20-year Red Ranger, even the Mega battle is supposed to come out. They've been publicizing for like 2 years. Did you guys see the commercial where they finally show where Tommy's doing in the car with the little kid for the episode? The Mega episode that's coming out, I guess in 2 months. That's where all the Rangers are supposed to be there, but they were too cheap to get everybody, so there's only like 10, right? Everybody else is just in the costume. And how many of you know the story of that, of why everybody's not in the show? Did anybody know? So, collectively, right now, there's about 100 Power Rangers, right? There's 20 years, about 5 Rangers a year, there's about 100 Rangers, collectively. And so, there's a Mega War episode that's coming out, which every single Ranger is supposed to be in there. And in Japan, it's like a mini-series, so there's probably like 4 episodes in Japan for this one episode. But because Power Rangers is so cheap here, they made it 1 episode. So that's what, 23 minutes. How are you supposed to fit 100 Rangers in 23 minutes saying something, doing a story? But they did it. But they didn't even email everybody. Out of 100 Rangers, they probably emailed, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 of them. And the email was exactly the same. It just said, Dear Power Ranger, we want you to be part of our Mega War episode, blah, blah, blah. We're in New Zealand now. This is the tentative dates, and we're going to pay you this much, which wasn't even anything. So a lot of people have families now. They have businesses. They can't just pack up and leave for 2 weeks, and they're going to pay them $500. It's like, come on. So a lot of them were offended because they didn't get an email. Some of them, a lot of the Rangers don't like Saban in general, so they don't want to have nothing to do with the show. It's not necessarily the fans, it's just the way we were treated on the show that they don't want to have nothing to do with it. And that's kind of sad because it's like, you were made popular because of the fans, and just put this stuff aside with Saban and just go. But anyway, so collectively I think like 10 Rangers ended up going over there. And they just had everybody else in the helmets and the masks behind them. You You know, I'm sure everybody has like one line, because like I said, it's a 23-minute episode. You can't put that much stuff in one episode. They're supposed to be fighting everybody. You know, but, yeah. Anybody else?
Is the rumor true that you really are a Batman fan and you'd love to have my Batmobile and you'd love to trade everything you have for my car?
No, that's Dunham.
Oh!
That's Dunham. You've taken pictures with Dunham, right?
Yeah.
Here?
Valkyrie.
For those of you that don't know, I'll go into this real quick. That's Mike back there. He owns a Batmobile in there. And last year we did a Comic-Con in Albuquerque. It was me, him, and the Back to the Future guy, actually. But we made that into a 2-week tour. There was another kid that had cancer in Oregon. He's still around, good guy. And we still talk to the family a lot. And well, what it was, we went to Albuquerque Comic-Con, drove all the way back to California, picked up a couple other movie cars, and they drove us up the coast to Oregon for the next weekend. And we went to this big, it wasn't even a big benefit, but it was big for the town. It was another small town. Everybody took care of us, everybody was cool. But we spent 2 weeks on the road together, driving. It was a good little vacation for me. Anybody else?
Did you ever wear the like Megazord suits or anything?
No. Those were a couple of things I never wore. The big robot ones, though. I don't even know why that is. I have pictures of me holding them, but I never wore those suits. That's a good point that I never realized.
What was your reaction when you first saw your action figure in stores?
Well, I already knew, like when I was Baboo, I already knew of the characters, and I already saw the toys. So when they said, hey, I want you to wear this, I was like, oh, hell yeah, I'm going to wear it. I wasted no time. I put my uniform on, I was like, yeah, I'm Baboo. That was cool because I already knew what it was. Like a lot of times, there are some Rangers, which I don't know how this happens, but some of the Power Rangers, the actual actors, they go into the show not knowing anything about Power Rangers. And I'm like, how do you not know about this franchise? How can you not be brought up knowing about this stuff? But there's Rangers that have never seen the show, and they go in there, and well, now you're a Ranger, now you gotta live up to it. No, but for me it was always cool. Every time they would tell me to wear that, I go, hey, it may have. We used to have this saying because we got the stunt suits after Japan. So how many times did they wear them in Japan, and how long were they in storage, smothering all these people's sweat, right? So every time we get these suits from Japan, we'd open up the Velcro, because it was usually Velcro on the back. And we'd always send the one, it was me, that was like an initiation at times, like a freshman initiation. When the suits came, like I was a new guy, I did it several times and threw up most of the time. They go open that suit. And the first time I didn't know, and I opened it, and it was just like stench of 1,000 stuntmen. And so we used to call it STS. And it was like stench of 1,000 stuntmen would come out. And even wearing, no amount of Febreze, those urinal little things that they put in the urinals for freshness, is like, none of that stuff helped. We used all of it. It was like, there's been times where I gagged in the suit, it was like, no way. There would be like a little area for me to breathe, and we'd be filming, and then just, add a little, hey, the guy's throwing up. It's fine. Those are good times that I don't want to remember. Anybody else? What can I talk about? I'm usually very talkative, and I forget all of a sudden. Oh, no, I can't talk about that. Yes.
Are you any of the 4 turtles?
Usually I'm Michelangelo. Slowly I'm getting out of the suit because I don't want to say the wrong thing, because I do enjoy being in it. It's just out of everybody. Okay, for example, here at this event, I have a family they're my friends that live here in Las Cruces. So their kids, 2 of them, or actually 3 of them, are the other 3 turtles. And when I'm back home and I don't do these events, I do birthday parties and I do events and stuff like that. So I'm, out of everybody that's in the suit, I've logged the most hours. And I've been in that thing so much that it's taxing on your body to be in those things. And a lot of people don't realize how tiring it is, you know, and I'm just worn out. The word I want to use is I'm worn out. Because it's a lot, you know, in Power Rangers, when we were done with the scene, we could just unzip and do that, you know. Here we have to be in it for like 3 hours at a time. It's like not bad, but you know, it's taxing. But usually at Michelangelo, a couple months ago, this guy called my partner. My partner's the one the guy that's Raphael, he's the one that makes the suits. His name's Daniel Bravo. And this guy called me and said, hey, I want a Michelangelo suit. I was like, okay, you know, what's it for? He's like, well, I was Michelangelo in the second movie. His name's Nick Palma. And so he goes, okay, I'll make you one. He goes, but I might need a small one because I'm a short guy. And so he brought Nick Palma to the house, and I went over there. Nick Palma's like I don't even think he's 5 feet. He's a little older Italian guy. And the guy has more energy than any 5-year-old I've ever seen in my life. In the suit, that guy can be in the suit for like 2-3 hours, and that guy's still like jumping around. And but he's fun. He's a good guy, and when he's Michelangelo, I let him be Michelangelo because he was Michelangelo. That's like saying somebody's gonna be Baboo, but they're not gonna be Baboo or whatever.
Shotgun, right?
Yeah. Anybody else?
What's the most recent thing you've done?
I worked on that movie. I worked on. Well, I day play on Revenge. I don't follow the storyline because I'm only there like once every 3 months doing whatever it is I'm doing. I've worked on the Charlie Sheen show, that anger management. Every once in a while I work on that. But movie-wise, I worked on Ouija board. That movie that's coming out, Ouija board. I worked on that. That was done on a low budget. It was Michael Bay had a part of it. I hate that guy. He's ruined Transformers and Turtles for me. I mean, the Turtle movie, for what it was awesome. Me and a couple of my, we like it. For what it was good. But it's not the storyline. Just like Transformers, it was okay for what it was, but it was not the story. They didn't crash the ship. You know, I wanted to see Teletran 1 right there. It's like, but Michael Bay has a small production company, and apparently when we were doing Ouija board, I found out that he bought a bunch of. Is it Milton Bradley that owns Ouija board? Whatever game company it is, he bought the rights to all the games that they had. So I think his overall plan is to start making these films on the game, like how Jumanji was and stuff like that. Even though Jumanji wasn't a real game at first, you know, but stuff like that. And so he had a Ouija board, and I never saw him on set, but his name was always there. But I think that'll be a good little scary movie. And they made the girl look up like the girl from The Ring. She's just in a white dress and stuff. They even redid the Ouija board for that movie. The Ouija board oracle lights up now. It's like it's supposed to light up. Do you really talk to people now that there's a battery in there? Anybody else? I've done big events. I've been in the paper, in the news, TV, and everybody always wonders how Nickelodeon and Paramount don't bust me. They've never told me anything. They even wanted to hire me for the premiere at their studio, which is by my house. And at that point, they had my phone number and my email and everything, my address. And they still haven't come after me. And I'm doing all these events, you know, it's like, but I don't do bad things, you know, I don't go to like the Hemp Fest and stuff like that. You know, but a lot of people are thinking because it's not the new Turtles, it's not the new cartoon, it's not the new movie that they don't care. But in the real world, anything else they would care. But at the same time, cosplay was involved, was a word that was thrown around. And all these party character people, those companies have like look-alike guys, right? And so I think if they came after us, they would have to go after everybody, which is a big deal. You know, so maybe that's why they don't come after me. They better not. Anybody else? Question? Power Rangers? Turtles? Why I didn't get plastic surgery? Let me think of another funny story. Do you all know that Jason Frank used to practical joke people on the set? know? One time we were filming at the park, and I think he pulled down David Yo's pants. I think that's what happened. We're at the beach or something. He was always playing jokes on people, and a lot of people didn't like it. I guess it was the people that he would do stuff to. And no questions, nothing?
What was one of the worst injuries you got on the set of the Power Rangers?
It was my own fault, and it wasn't bad, thankfully. I got wedged my arm got wedged, my hand and my elbow got wedged in between something that was closing, and I didn't feel it at the time, but I saw it. I saw my arm buckle, and but it went back. It didn't stay like that. It just happened real quick. I saw it buckle, and then I fainted. My whole face went black. I was like, what the? I was like, but then I woke up real quick. My arm hurt. I didn't feel anything. It just hurt like if I had a bruise. But I went to they sent me to the hospital, and I guess I had a fracture. I fractured my arm. And I got to wear this little bowling brace. Things the bowlers wear. And I wore that for like a year, and it took like 2 more years after that for me not to feel any pain. Because even after I took it off, I couldn't even pick up this water without it hurting. But where I thought I had broke it, it was just like a fracture, which I guess is almost the same thing. It was like, you know, that's why you got to pay attention.
Besides you climbing into that tree, what was your most embarrassing moment on any set? Embarrassing moment?
Probably when I was a Pink Ranger and the kids saw me at the park. We always had to hide. We're like, back then we had to hide because everything was so secretive. I don't think it's like that now. You know, everything's on social media. I don't think it matters. But everything was so secretive back then that if you were the Girl Ranger, or like Billy used to smoke, you know, so he had to go hide. You know, so there were times when Make-A-Wish would come to the studio, and he used to just smoke outside. And one time the kids came, he's like, "Oh, the kid will run away." You know. But I think now it's different with social media and the way things are in the world. It's a lot different. You know. 1 minute. Okay. You have 1 minute. We can sit here looking at each other. Or you can ask me a question. Let me see. I'll get you that right now. And I guess I cross-geeked myself, right? Because I made the Ninja Turtles in the van, and I worked on Power Rangers, so I cross-geeked myself because that was an episode in Power. Do you guys know that was an episode of Power Rangers? Saban had acquired the rights to the Ninja Turtles, so he had to put something out, and he did it real quick by making it a crossover episode with the Power Rangers and Space People. That was like the worst episode, I think, ever, next to Power Rangers Zeo, when we had the Halloween episode. I think Power Rangers Zeo, the Halloween episode, was the worst episode ever. It was like poorly done. It was worse than the second movie. And you know how bad the second movie was. Alright, well I guess I'll wrap it up. Thank you everybody for coming. Please go stop by my booth and go to the autograph. I'll do it right now. And cheers.